I have officially been off of social media for 365 days, and I can definitively say that it is the single best thing that I've ever done for my mental health. Let me show you what I mean. In the beginning of February 2020, I was in a major slump. School was weighing me down, and I was having issues with my confidence and self-worth and body image and just general feelings of self-hatred that I had never experienced before in my life. COVID was starting to get a little bit of traction, but at the time no one was really fussing over it, so school carried on and I continued to get more and more irritable and moody without ever knowing why. Every day I would spend hours and hours on my phone, endlessly scrolling through content on Instagram particularly. It didn't matter what it was as long as I had something to do at all times. My mind was never empty or wandering. It was always glued to my phone, and it got to the point where I was visibly frustrated every time the Wi-Fi at school cut out because I couldn't connect to my Instagram account to pass the time. Finally, after hours and hours of scrolling, I realized that I had started to form this massive headache, which transformed into a migraine, and I looked at the screen time on my phone. 8 hours. 8 hours of time on my phone, and 6 hours of that was on Instagram. How unbelievable is that? Just me saying that is crazy to think that I ever spent that much time wasted on something that gave me no joy whatsoever. I don't want to sound cliche when I say this, but this was definitely the defining moment where I knew something had to change. And so with that being said, I deleted all of my posts, logged out of all of my accounts, and deleted the app right off my phone. To everyone who has never been without social media when it's been a defining time waster in your life forever, it goes something like this. I would like to call it the 7-stage detox. The first phase is shock, that initial revelation that sets the whole cycle in motion. For me, it was that 8 hours of screen time that forced me to rethink what social media was and what place it should have in my life. It's the sole reason why I decided to get rid of it in the first place, and it'll be jarring but absolutely necessary. The second stage is denial. Once I had deleted all of my social media, there was a part of my brain that was so hooked on that addiction, so accustomed to dedicating so much daily time into this app, the simple act of scrolling and liking, that I would frequently open my phone and go to where the app was located only to find that it wasn't there anymore. I used to have second thoughts about re-downloading it and just start wondering what my friends were doing, what they were posting, what they were liking, and whether anyone had DM'd me, which leads me to the third stage, anger. Not being able to see what my friends were doing was irritating, to say the least. I didn't have something to fill my time anymore and interact with. And by this time, the pandemic had fully closed down school and I was home with my family. I was alone, making it even more frustrating to not look back and scroll and just fill my time with all of this endless news. The fourth stage is bargaining. I had constant fights in my head about what I would do with this time. Maybe I could download Snapchat instead. I've never been much of a Snapchat person, but I started thinking about Twitter or maybe re-downloading Facebook just to see what my family is doing. But your mind is going to come up with all of these excuses and reasons to go back to the old normal. But this is the time to be uncomfortable. Make this your new normal. Trust me, it's hard, but it pays off in the long run. Stage 5 is classified as a bit of a depression period. Now, I was never truly depressed, but there came a low point in the beginning of quarantine where I realized that I wasn't going to see my friends for a while. I wasn't going to go to school for a while, and things were definitely going to be different in the world. I would take long walks, sometimes 3 hours, just thinking about what I was going to do, and honestly, this period was the hardest but the most essential time in trying to build this habit. Once I got through it, I was just really on my way to discovering why people do this in the first place, do this whole social media detox. Stage 6 is the second to last stage, and it is experimentation. This is where I really started to test the waters for what I could and couldn't do with my time. What I liked, what I didn't like. It was a huge process combing through all of the extracurriculars that I had built up on this list, but because we were all locked inside, I definitely had a lot of time to think it through. I discovered just how much I love walking and learned how to play a little bit of guitar, and I tried being vegan for the first time, which gave me a lot of new recipe ideas and made me fall back in love with cooking and meal prep and baking and just being in the kitchen with friends and family. I'm honestly still going back and forth between all of the things I love to do, and at the moment, painting is definitely on my radar, but it's always been something I want to get better at. And stage 7, finally, acceptance. I think the 3-month mark was when I realized that I was never going to use social media in the same way again. I threw it all away cold turkey one faithful day in February of last year, and I think I realized that after having so much more time to spend on myself and look deep inside my mind and make such meaningful reflections, I didn't need social media to fill those gaps anymore. I was all I needed. I got to spend more time bettering myself and making changes to my psyche that I honestly don't think I ever would have done if it wasn't for this time for myself. I never would have opened up if it wasn't for me getting rid of the thing that was controlling me. In my case, Instagram. In your case, it might be Snapchat or Facebook or email for all I know. If you're a teenager or even younger than that, or maybe you're a young adult who's getting more familiar with social media and maybe has developed a bit of an addiction, I urge you to reassess how you're spending that time. It doesn't have to be specifically social media. It can be something else that you feel like you're dedicating a lot of time into, but it isn't giving you what you want. It isn't bringing you as much happiness as it should or originally was in the first place. Try to look deeper into why that is the case and just ask yourself a few of these questions. Will I be proud of the time I spend doing this in 5 years? That is one of the key things that I kept in mind whenever I was going through something and just really wanted to resort back to my old ways. From my personal experience, going without social media for so long has just completely changed my view on the world, and I've always wanted everyone to like me and tried changing my personality for every single person at school. When I was trying to fit myself into everyone's ideas of who I should be and everyone's standards of how I should act and how I should respond, I just came home feeling so exhausted. And again, I never knew why. It was just so mentally draining to have this mask over myself that I couldn't be who I really truly wanted to be. And honestly, at that point, I really didn't know who I was. I'm not even sure I know now who I am, honestly, but that's okay because it's all a learning curve and we're all going to keep learning new things about ourselves throughout our lives. This feeling was the same for social media though. I wanted to have an aesthetic feed and hype my friends up and post frequently but high quality photos, and while none of those are inherently bad on their own, the excess is what causes problems. I know everyone has different experiences with social media, but for me it was definitely very toxic, and I know that a lot of kids feel the same way. The emphasis now with things like TikTok, where algorithms are becoming more and more advanced, we all need to be aware of our media consumption and what it's doing to us mentally. I urge you all to do a 2-week social media cleanse and see how you feel. Maybe you're more productive. Maybe you figure out just a little bit more about yourself. Whatever it is, try to make the most of that time. And if you do end up re-downloading it, just be more aware of how you're spending that time and what you're doing on social media that is benefiting you in some way. So now where am I? I currently have Twitter, mostly honestly just to keep up with Elon Musk, but I've made it a point to never use Snapchat or Instagram again. I'm not sure that I could handle all of that again. I just don't think that it would be good for me mentally. In terms of Facebook, I have it, but I mostly use it for Messenger and to keep in touch with old friends and family. If I do any scrolling on my phone, I make sure that it doesn't exceed 5 minutes, and honestly, I get tired after 5 minutes anyways, so it's not like it goes farther than that. I've trained myself to value other things above this obsession and focus my attention on doing what I love with close friends and family. We have so much time, and if you were to watch your life back, how much of that would you want to be spent scrolling on your phone? How much of that time could have been turned into something beneficial? Something you're proud of. I have a link tree in the description. It has my podcast, a few of my articles that I've written, and you can schedule a meeting with me if you would like to talk about social media or just interests in general. I love meeting people. I hope you had a wonderful time, and with that being said, I will see you in the next video. See ya!